Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this exclusive walkthrough of Kestra Enterprise Edition. In this session, we're going to move beyond the basics of Kestra Core and dive into the infrastructure, security, and governance features designed for scaling your mission-critical operations. My name is Will. I'm a developer advocate here at Kestra, and I'm joined here with Paul, our lead field engineer. Paul, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks very much for that intro, Will. So yeah, my title at Kestra is Lead Field Engineer. What that means is that I'm responsible for making sure our customers are successful with Kestra Enterprise. So typically I will guide customers through their initial evaluation of Kestra Enterprise all the way into our customer success program that I lead with our team here. So really excited to be here today to actually go through the Kestra Enterprise, show a lot of the cool features that we have in store. Yeah, so I think we'll just jump right in, Will. What do you think?
Yeah. So why should people consider changing from, using Kestra's open source version to the enterprise edition? What are some of the things that people might be thinking about when they make this change?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great way to start. So, if you're coming here today, you may already be familiar with our Kestra Core. It's a fantastic solution. We see so many people getting great use out of it in their home labs. We recently had some really cool AI agents hackathon. We're seeing great use cases built on the open source platform. We even have a few people using it for some production workloads today as well, which it's fantastic. You can do a lot with Kestra Core. It has a simple declarative structure, as you may be aware, that really allows you to get up and running really quickly. The challenge is, though, once you reach a point when you're starting out with Kestra or any other open source solution, you'll build a few initial use cases. They run great, or maybe they're in a POC state. But what happens then is you start having this shift where you've started with a few workflows, and now suddenly you're managing a giant automation platform that hundreds of people are relying on. And as great as Kestra Core is, it doesn't have all the necessary features. Now, for me, like I actually started my career in enterprise software. I kind of went it the reverse way before shifting more into like open source solutions like Kestra and other technologies. So I've kind of seen and I'm kind of aware what these businesses expect in these solutions. So there's really like three key areas we're going to focus on today and really highlight how Kestra Enterprise accomplishes them. So the first one, and this is I think one of those basic reasons why people come to Kestra Enterprise, is security. Like, how do you secure your confidential information? After that is governance. How do you apply your policies, your company policies in Kestra itself? And finally, and this is going to be an interesting one throughout Kestra, is scalability. Scalability, and it's also in the name of today's webinar, so of course I'm going to talk about it for a bit. So when I talk about scale, often you'll automatically think we're talking about just scaling compute. That's definitely something we're going to talk today. So how do you like scale to millions of executions in Kestra? But there's another aspect to that as well. You are managing a platform that could be at some giant multinational corporation where you have thousands of users. How do you actually scale your platform to meet the needs of all those users, applying all those policies? You can't do that on a simple open source solution. You need these enterprise grade features. And we're going to show you how we actually do that in Kestra today.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Paul, for giving that explanation of why you might want to move to Kestra Enterprise. Like you say, we often see it where if you're just an individual, using it for personal use, it's a great solution because it allows you to build these powerful workflows just like you can in the Enterprise Edition. Is as things start to grow, more people start using the platform, your workflows go from 3 to many executions go from a few a day to every hour, and all of a sudden you've got quite a lot going on. So I guess jumping into our first section, how do we keep the platform safe without slowing down developers? Nothing worse than security making things just more friction, everything takes longer. How do we keep the platform safe without slowing down development?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing Kestra. So we'll begin this demonstration of some of these core concepts. Now, this very first one, this really is, I wowould say, table stakes for pretty much any enterprise software. So Kestra Core is a single user. So to your point, Will, there, you don't want to be giving your CISO like a heart attack that you're just sharing your credentials around your company. Everyone's logging in with the same user. So the very first thing you want to implement in your enterprise solution is SSO. or alternatively, perhaps you want to use, say, your LDAP provider. So Kestra, out of the box on our Enterprise Edition, is compatible with any OIDC compliant solution. So I'm just going to log in with Google, but this can be Entra ID, Keycloak, Okta, Altair, the list goes on. I have customers using custom implementations as well. As long as it follows the OIDC standard, it will work here. And I'll just go ahead and start logging in. So very simple. I click Google, and now I've logged into my Kestra application. So I'm not using the same basic auth. So like I said, that's table stakes. It's just making sure that we can log in. Really, where you want to take, and this is coming back to our scale discussion. How do we then build this application so that it can actually support many users needing to log in? So let's see how this is done. I'm going to navigate now on the left-hand side. You'll see I've got my administration pane. I'm going to come to IAM. So I'm going to go just to the users tab here. So what you can start with, you may when you're first testing out, you can start inviting some of your users in your company to Kestra. So I can click add, and now I can start adding in users, like inviting users. This is okay, maybe your initial POC, you just want to check this out. But coming back again, you have thousands of users. Do you really want to be in here adding each one of those individually? Absolutely not. That's going to take way too long. And of course, from a governance perspective as well, as people come and go from your company, you don't want to have to manage that life cycle of your employees either. So we have a few ways of managing this in Kestra. So I did mention already that we do support LDAP. So rather than using SSO, you could integrate Kestra with LDAP, and your LDAP provider then will provide that group and user membership information. However, an alternative as well is skim provisioning. So this is supported on platforms like Azure Entra ID. And this gives a live sync of your groups and your users directly into Kestra. So what does that mean? It means that you don't manually need to manage your users in Kestra. Your single source of truth is back in your primary IAM provider. So this is fantastic. You don't have to worry about managing this. You set this up once, and it does all the heavy lifting for you. So this simply scales how you can add more and more users to your platform.
Yeah, I really, really like this feature because it allows you to just focus on your workflows in Kestra rather than spending tons of time managing Kestra. Yeah, it just saves you a load of time and allows you to focus on the important things.
100%, yeah.
Excellent. Now, on top of identity management, what other ways can we protect our data inside of Kestra?
Yeah, and again, so this is like I said, security is always first and foremost, as it should be when you're building these platforms. Of course, we've now authenticated in a secure, compliant way. The next thing we need to think about is our data. How do we manage those confidential credentials that we have, maybe logging into databases or other services that we're using? Now, in Kestra Core, you are using environment variables that are just base64 encoded, so not that secure. What we can do in Kestra Enterprise, you'll see here on the left-hand side, is that I have this secrets view. And this is listing all secrets that I have available. Where are these secrets coming from? We integrate with any of the main cloud providers' secret managers. So you have AWS, Google, and Azure. And then for our on-premise customers, we also have HashiVault, CyberArk, and I think we recently added Doppler as well. So we're just continually adding more and more based on user demand. But again, what this allows you to do is just integrate with your existing secret manager, and even better, you can just reuse the existing secrets. You can, if you wish, create secrets from Kestra. You can set it up in a read-write mode. But again, if you're in a large org, you don't want to be duplicating secrets in multiple places. It's just going to be messy. It's an auditing nightmare. Instead, you can have a single source of truth, which is your secret manager. You can point Kestra at that, and you can access those secrets when you need them. Now, there's like some really nice additions we've added in Kestra on how those secrets can be accessed and who can see what. We're going to cover that a little later. But just for now, you can just understand that Kestra can just integrate directly with your secret manager, and you can just read them directly in your flows. Now, Will, your next question may be, how do I read those secrets? Well, let's go ahead and just have a quick look at how that's done in Kestra. We're going to look at some of the flow code. So today I'm going to be showing everything in the YAML code. So I've just got a few flows bookmarked. I'm going to click on this audit example here at the end. And it's really straightforward in Kestra. As if you've used Kestra, you would come to expect. I want to reference a specific secret. In this case, I want to get the password for, in this case, it's an Elasticsearch server. I simply use our Pebble templating syntax in this secret expression, and I just reference the secret key. So no secrets are revealed at all at any time. This is simply accessed on runtime, and I have my secure credential. It's that easy to reference your secret once it's been pulled into your Kestra instance.
Very nice. Now, like the trend, I'm going to keep saying this, but it's really the main thing that makes Enterprise very helpful is, you don't have to add your users and your groups in. It will pull that automatically from your existing systems. You don't have to add your secrets in manually. It will, again, just pull that from your existing systems. Kestra is designed that it will just integrate into your organization, work with all the tools you're already using so that you can just focus on the main reason you wanted Kestra, right? To build automations. So yeah, this is another really, really good example of you can just use your secrets straight in your workflow, no hassle. But this does sort of go on nicely onto our next segue, which is another way to keep your data safe. It's not really keeping it safe; it's more the prevention, I guess, of being able to see what's going on and understand when things might go wrong. What does Kestra do here to sort of help us keep an eye on what's going on and where our data is moving?
Yeah, so especially in our Enterprise Edition, and what you'll want to be able to track is exactly that, Will. So when changes happen in Kestra, and a change in Kestra can be anything from I've created a new flow, I've updated a flow, or I've created a new execution of a flow. Because if something goes wrong with that execution and someone had manually executed it, you would want to know, be able to trace back through like who did that and what was the reason behind why they executed or made that change. So how do you track this? Now, one really nice thing we have in Kestra is this audit log. Now, I'm actually in a specific task here. You can see on the screen the audit log shipper. We'll come back to this in a moment. I want to show you what the actual audit log looks like. Now, again, this is an administration level view. So I can come in here to administration, and you'll see here I have audit logs. You'll also find in every resource in Kestra as well, you will have audit logs, so you can see specific audit logs to that resource. But this view here will give you the overall view for the current tenant that you're in. And what's a tenant? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. So this is our audit log view. Now, in this case, we can just see there's been a lot of executions created for a specific flow. So we have some flow in the system namespace called monitoring, and it looks like this is executing every minute. Now, I may be interested, I want to see flows that were run by me. I can come in here, I can go add a filter, I can search by a user, and in this case, it's just myself. And here we can see that I've had some activity. And here's actually something that could be raise a few flags. Paul came in and deleted a secret. We probably should go talk to him what he was up to there. So, this is really powerful because it gives you that full traceability of what happened in your flow, especially if you're building mission critical automations in Kestra, like so many of our users are. You need this visibility, especially when things go wrong.
Now, you kind of quickly showed us the audit log shipper you had. And this goes into, again, I keep saying it, being able to integrate with your existing systems. Would you like to add a little more information? Oh, looks like Paul.
Yeah, of course. Apologies, I think I just had to back up on the screen.
We'll just give that a second for Paul to rejoin us. Looks like he was just running into a connection issue. But if you do have any questions about any of the topics we're discussing, do put them in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll also be answering questions at the end. So if there's any questions you've got about any of the features we're discussing, do let us know, and we'll do our best to answer those. I believe Paul might be back now. Hello.
Yeah. Apologies, the perils of living in Ireland on a rainy day. Sometimes it gets the internet, but looks like we're back up and running. Okay, so we were talking about the audit log shipper, and again, that was a great point, Will. So again, scaling our operations. So we've talked about scaling user base, we're going to discuss that a bit more there's more to discuss there. But again, there's other parts of your stack. You've got your monitoring, your observability stack. Again, it's great. You can see a lot of the information in Kestra. I just showed you the audit log. We can see other logs as well from flow executions. But really, at the end of the day, you don't want to be looking in multiple areas when you're trying to find out a problem. It can be very difficult for the support or SRE teams to find what went wrong. So what we've added in Kestra in our Enterprise Edition are these concepts of log shippers that allow you to ship logs to specific targets. Now, these targets, like the example I have here, are Elasticsearch, it could be OpenSearch, it could be Splunk, it could be CloudWatch, the list goes on. We're still adding more and more different destinations. But what that gives you is the flexibility to keep your existing observability tool and send your data from Kestra to there. So again, helps you really scale your operations. Everyone still has a single pane of glass where they can view the observability of all their IT infrastructure. And Kestra is just happily doing the automations for you in this case.
Very nice. Now, I think we've covered the security part of Kestra Enterprise pretty well. But again, if you have any questions about this or any particular features, let us know in the chat. We'll be doing our best to look at those throughout the webinar. But I'm curious now to learn a little bit more about governance and productivity inside of Kestra. And so as you scale, it might go from being one team who's using Kestra. Now, all of a sudden, you've got multiple teams using Kestra. How do they all coexist on a single platform?
Great question. And the answer is in many different ways. And we're going to bring back to some of the terminology I've discussed already, because I think it's a great time to bring that up. Let's start with the concept of multi-tenancy in Kestra. So you have when you deploy Kestra Enterprise, you have a single instance of Kestra. That can be logically subdivided into multiple tenants, and these tenants have strict isolation between them. What do I mean? Take, for example, maybe a large multinational corporation. They have teams in Europe and the US, and it could be, say, like finance or some other use case where you can't necessarily have the two desks talking to one another. There could also be maybe very strict data residency rules where everything in Europe has to remain in the Europe tenant. And that's what multi-tenancy in Kestra does. It allows you to build your automations with zero sharing between them. Furthermore, it allows you to also isolate some of the compute and storage you have in these services. So let me demonstrate that. Now you can see here on the left-hand side, I am in my sales engineering tenant. If I want to create a new tenant, I'll come to administration, I'll go to tenants, and I'll create a tenant. Now here you'll give it an ID. We'll discuss worker groups in a little while. But what I would just want to point out here is the fact that we can have dedicated internal storage and a dedicated secret manager. Now, you may not be aware in Kestra, the internal storage is a concept we have for storing, say, like outputs from flows. So in that context where you may have strict data residency rules where you need to keep data maybe in a specific zone within the US or perhaps in Europe, you can build a tenant that adheres to those standards. So you would specify my storage is this bucket in S3 and this in US Central 1. And then for my secret manager, I must use AWS as a very specific example. You can then onboard specific users to that tenant, and they can only see that tenant they're put into. They don't have access to the other tenant. So it's a really nice way of being able to fully segregate your users. So that's really the first way of we say coexisting. I'm not sure like the way I describe it really is like coexisting. We're keeping everyone apart, but it is quite valid and something we see users use Kestra for. Now, the other way is a more collaborative approach. So within your tenant in Kestra, you then have the tenants subdivided into namespaces. You can see I have namespaces here on the left-hand side. Namespaces, for now, just kind of consider them like project folders. They're collections of flows, secrets, configurations, defaults. So it's a way of organizing your resources in Kestra in these folders. What's really nice in this concept in Kestra is that you can actually control the access to these namespaces via role-based access control applied to the groups we saw earlier. So so you can build specific groups with various access who can access different namespaces. Now, I'm saying a lot of different terms here. I'm going to show you examples shortly, so hopefully, like this all becomes clear. But the key difference here, why you would use tenants versus namespaces. Tenants are when you need that really strict isolation. There's no talking to one another. Namespaces, they're more for if you need some sort of, say, you need some sort of collaboration between teams. You may have, say, like a namespace. For example, I have my alerting namespace. I have, say, like Slack notifications, Teams notification flows in here. Way of standardizing some of your processes so teams can reference flows in this namespace for use in their own flows. So a good way of like sharing those resources. So let's how about we have a look at the role-based access control, Will? I think that might help tie
I was
all
going to
this together.
say, you've mentioned it a few times now.
Yeah.
Let's jump into what that might actually look like and how you can really add control to your Kestra instance.
Perfect. So this is what our roles view looks like in Kestra. So I'm back in IAM and I'm in the roles section now. So Kestra, out of the box, it comes with several predefined roles. And these are not too dissimilar to what you might have in other platforms. So I have an admin role, which has a lot of access, and a viewer role, which is primarily read-only access to whatever resources applied on. What's more in Kestra is that if these don't fully fit your needs, you can see here, these are managed roles. They have the lock, they can't be changed. But you can also create your own custom roles as well. For example, I have an infrastructure role, a catalog user role. So you can define these. And how you do so, there's a big create button here in the upper right-hand corner. I can click this and you can see the various levels of roles that we have available in Kestra. So it's very granular. I'm not going to cover all these in detail, but suffice to say, every resource you're seeing Kestra can be controlled via RBAC. So very powerful, and you can build some very powerful rules about the access your users have. So then once you have this role, you need to apply it to a group. So let's take an example here. So I have a few groups set up here. I have my approvers, infra, and marketing. Let's take a look at marketing. So I have a marketing group and I've given them 3 roles. I've given them the editor role in marketing. I've given the viewer role in Kestra, in the Kestra namespace, and the viewer role in the system namespace. And then I've already added 1 user here for this particular group. So if you've ever worked at a really large enterprise and you've built permissions, especially for very complex applications, it can be really difficult to figure out if this has been applied correctly. So what's really nice in Kestra is that we do have an impersonate feature. So especially if you're the super admin or the developer building these roles, you can kind of test it out to make sure that things are working as expected. Or if a user reports they can't see a specific resource, you can come in and you can check that out. So if I take our friend marketing here, we go to users. I know I'm good at some things. Yeah, being creative on fake names is not that. I'm going to impersonate this person. And when I do, you'll see the view has slightly changed. And if I come to the namespaces, I have a very stripped down view of the namespaces that are available. So if I came into the Kestra demo and I tried to say maybe like edit, and if I come to their flows, there's a request VM flow here. I can try and edit this. I can't edit it. It's in read-only mode. That's my permission. Now, what's interesting here as well, coming back to some of our governance discussions earlier, I'm coming into the marketing namespace. I'm going to create a flow. I'll just save a default flow. Now, this is kind of interesting because I'm impersonating someone. I'm taking an action on their behalf. Now, that could be a reason to cause a flag because you don't want a person really impersonating you and taking these actions. And what's nice about Kestra is that we are capturing this information. So if I stop impersonating this person and go back to my audit log.
As you can see, all the information's come back now.
Yeah, there we go. So there's no hiding. We can see here that the flow was created and there was an impersonate active for that flow. And we can see it was done by myself. So again, really powerful, really important from a governance and security perspective that we're capturing this information. So you have that full traceability back to who created resources or made changes within your platform.
Thank you for showing this, Paul. This kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier, where you can easily integrate with your existing systems where you've already got groups and users set up right in your existing directory. You can sync those into Kestra, and then all you've got to do in Kestra is assign roles to those groups. So anytime you add a new user to your directory, they get synced to Kestra. They automatically get the correct permissions they need. So they're never given permissions where they get more access than they need or can see data they shouldn't be able to. It makes managing that, which as you scale can get more complex, makes it easy and makes it manageable. Whereas, you think about it on paper, you think, well, the more permissions there are, the more users, the harder it's going to get. It doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
Now we've talked about the structure, we've talked about the access control. Now I'd be interested in how we help you standardize things across Kestra, because copying and pasting things is normally like a fast track ticket to things going wrong. So how do we standardize things to help make sure we aren't repeating ourselves, we aren't copying and pasting things where you could accidentally paste things in the wrong place?
Yeah, great question. So let's come back into namespaces to show you how we can do that. And I kind of hinted on this earlier. So namespaces are a good way of controlling that. So for instance, you could have, like my earlier example, the alerting namespace, and that's specific flows that are built for sending any sort of alerts you need. But there's a lot of really nice features within the namespaces themselves to help standardize that. So let's go in and have a look at my solutions namespace. So just scroll down here and select it. And this is the view you get when you come into a namespace. It's very similar to the primary dashboard. You can see like if there was any flow, so there was no executions currently in this particular namespace. You can see the flows that run. This one has not been terribly successful, but in terms of just what else you can really manage and view here. So you can see the secrets that are available at this particular namespace. So you can see here I have a lot of secrets in my solutions namespace, and you may recall that at the tenant for our tenants, we can assess a secret manager. We can also do that at the namespace level as well. So not only can you control access to specific namespaces via RBAC, you can at that namespace, you can have a dedicated secret manager. So maybe there's a further subset of users you only want to use this specific secret manager. To do that, it's very similar to tenants. You can edit the namespace. There's a toggle here. By the way, everything I'm doing here for more of the administrators out there, all this can also be automated using something like Terraform, if that's how you deploy your Kestra applications or other applications today. So very easy way, again, of just updating the namespace to add if there's a specific secrets manager you wanted to use there. But now we've discussed secrets already, but I think coming back to Will, your standardization. So this is really where we have things like variables and plugin defaults. I think I just need to just refresh here real fast. So our variables here, these are what we call in Kestra namespace variables. You can kind of consider them like environment variables. So these are not the really confidential information that you would have in your secret manager, but more so maybe between dev and QA, you might have a different host name, something like that. In this case here, my GCP project ID, I'm using the Kestra sandbox. Maybe I want like Kestra QA, so forth for different environments. So what I can just do, just taking my earlier remark, with Terraform in each environment, I would just update my namespace variable to that specific value. So that way in my flow, I'm only referencing this namespace variable. So again, that way you just have one copy of the flow across all your environments. So what you would expect when you're building your automations in Kestra using the YAML configuration, you only want to build that once and then just have to adjust a few configuration variables based on the environment it's in. Now, what I find the real productivity saver in Kestra is the plugin defaults. Actually, this is a really nice feature. So this allows you to set specific defaults for your plugins. Now, if you've been using Kestra for a while, you may have some really long flows, and you may be doing things like, I have an example here, say maybe going against Snowflake, or you're using one of our task runners, which we'll discuss in a little bit. And these always require a lot of information to configure. Well, not a lot of information, but very repetitive information. So if this is in this namespace, I may only be maybe hitting the same warehouse in Snowflake all the time. It's a little annoying to have to put that into every flow definition. So what I can do here is I can just define this once as a plugin default, and then anytime I want to use the Snowflake plugin or the task runner, these are already predefined, so I don't need to do that. I just reference the type. So it's super useful. What's also really useful from like a governance standpoint, in a lower environment, maybe I want to, if users are using Snowflake, maybe I want them to use a very specific warehouse. I don't want them to be able to put in the production credentials. You can see here I have this force parameter. And that means that no matter what I do, I have to use these values. So it really enforces, especially in lower environments, you can tell users which settings they must use. So that can be very powerful as well, just from a like controlling access perspective and governance. So it's super useful, and I think sometimes it goes a little underrated as like a feature within the Enterprise Edition of Kestra.
This is really nice. And I guess another thing that goes with the namespace variables you discussed is you can have it set up here where with the Postgres plugin, right, it's using your production database, but in your dev environment, you can be using the development environment without having to modify your workflow. And the other thing I really like about it as well, there's actually a couple of things. The first thing, I know it's a good feature. The first thing is I have some workflows where you're just making loads of different queries, and all of a sudden your workflow's gone from 50 lines to 200 because you're just repeating yourself a million times. Makes the workflow completely unreadable. So being able to get rid of that repetition is one big win in my book. Second thing is this plugin default works for like plugin groups as well. So that bottom example is a good one actually, because you're using the gcp.runner.cloud run. But if you wanted just to say any task that's using Google Cloud, use this service account. So you don't have to then specify for, I'm using BigQuery, I'm using GCS. You can just say, right, Google Cloud, this is the region I want it to work in. This is the service account. And again, it just helps to save that hassle of just specifying region in all these different tasks they're all different tasks, as that's a BigQuery one and that's a GCS one. But at the end of the day, they're all Google Cloud. So it's just nice to be able to group that all together.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and thanks for raising that, because I think that is again one of kind of the underrated features here. I've actually done that above as well with, say, like the Postgres connection, because with the Postgres you'll have a query, you have a batch, you could be using the queries task, and again it's all the same database, so super useful.
Saves you having to put out plugin defaults for each of those tasks.
Exactly.
Cool. So we've talked about plugin defaults, we've talked about namespace variables, and the main benefit being that production and development, sort of being able to move between environments, it just being effortless without having to, version control those environment variables, which you wouldn't want to necessarily do. I guess one other thing I'd like to mention about standardization before we move to our next section is you mentioned about how you can have dedicated secret managers, but you can also have dedicated storage, which helps you sort of prevent that noisy neighbor issue. Why would someone want to have dedicated storage? Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there could be, I think there's a few reasons. So the noisy neighbor is always a great example. So you may have a case where you don't want your particular storage you're building. You may have one namespace or tenant that's very loud. There's a lot of activity there. It's pushing a lot of data, and you don't want to necessarily have to use that. Maybe you have a more critical business like workflow elsewhere that doesn't run as often, but you don't want it to be impacted by that other workflow. So that way you can isolate the storage. Furthermore, I think, Will, it's worth mentioning as well the compute aspect as well. So you could have that running on a completely different compute node. We'll talk about worker groups a little later, but being able to really target a specific compute and storage environment, it really shields those critical workflows from maybe some other tasks that are, like you said, quite noisy. The other reason, of course, then is governance. Again, it's just data residency is very important for a lot of companies. You want to make sure that, okay, for this workflow, for this customer, their data must reside here. I do have some cases where users are building Kestra Enterprise in such a way where the data must live in their customer's account, so they're structuring their internal storage in that way. So you can get some very complex and really cool use cases with that dedicated internal storage and the isolated compute.
Nice. Now we've talked about this a lot. I think it's time to finally bring up the scalability part of Kestra. You've got millions of executions, but how do you make sure that doesn't crash and cause the rest of your operation to go down?
Yeah, let's get right into it again. So coming back to my bookmarks, and I'm just going to open up another example I have here. So this is another fairly complex flow that we have, but I think it's really demonstrates a lot of the power of Kestra. But to your point, Will, so this particular flow, where it really answers that scalability question, it's towards the end here. You see, I have this blue box process scenarios. And what it's actually doing here, so it looks like a Python task, but now thanks to my plugin defaults, I only need three lines of YAML, and this is really cool. So what this is doing is I'm simulating a case where I have a super complex task, like computationally complex, that I need to run. I don't want to run this on my local Kestra instance because I know I don't have the horsepower there. Instead, I want to use something like AWS Batch, where I can scale the compute elastically when I need to. So that's what I'm doing here. This is what we call a remote task runner. I'm telling Kestra to run this script, this Python script here in the cloud and my AWS on my AWS Batch. So I think just really have to highlight just how simple this was. Now I've gone ahead and configured. I've got like the job ARN, the task ARN, all that's configured to my plugin defaults. So me as a user, I just have to come in and I've just added these 3 lines. And this one here is just to make sure I get outputs back. But other than that, it was just specifying it's a specific task runner. And that's super powerful. From a productivity standpoint as well, if I want to test this locally, all I do is comment out these 3 lines, which is pretty powerful. And then if you've ever seen these job definitions, they can get kind of gnarly. So it's really great that I can just do this in 3 lines of YAML. Now, of course, there's other pieces here as well. There's some setup that I'm doing, but really this is the crux of it, that this is now scaling this workload. Now, this is not the only remote task runner we have. We have other options. So this is the AWS example. We have Google Cloud Run, Azure Batch, and we can also execute on the current or remote Kubernetes clusters as well. So you can also leverage those environments for that sort of remote execution.
This is really nice. And like you say, the plugin defaults help to clean this up a lot. You can very easily just put this back to running in a local Docker container. But something else I really like is you can specify in the task runner definition, how big the compute you need, right? So you can easily just go, okay, I need more memory. And you can just define that for some of those task runner types, which makes it very easy for you to, as the demand for that particular task changes, you can easily update it without having to spend ages faffing with configuration. It can easily scale to your needs quite nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at this point as well, so that's scaling the compute. So it's really simple. You can use these remote resources. We'll talk about worker groups in a little bit as well as another means of scaling. But let's look at a bit of the other aspect of scaling. Now, we're talking about our users. We're going to have we're presenting Kestra Enterprise. Hopefully lots of people are excited now. They want to give this to thousands of people in their organization. Now, lots of those users, they probably don't need this view in Kestra. A lot of your end users really, at the end of the day, they probably just want to execute something. In this case, assume this workflow here returns a report. They don't care that it's gone to AWS. They just want their report.
Yeah.
So what they would like is just like a simple app, like for this date, give me my report, press go. Well, what we've added in Kestra is this really cool feature called apps. You can see it here on the left-hand side. Now, what apps are a very lightweight UI that we've added on top of the flows that you can then set. You might have noticed earlier if you're in the roles and groups, there were specific app user roles. So you can create this subset of users who are just going to be executing apps and not actually going in administrating Kestra. So it's a really nice way of getting other users to use these flows. And let me show you what this looks like to the end user. So I'm going to actually switch my tenant. I don't think I showed this earlier. So you can see here, I'm actually a member of 3 tenants. I'm going to go to this solutions tenant. And now in apps, I have an apps catalog. Now, hopefully I'm just going to share the tab. Now, what you may have just noticed here, so this is suddenly, it's not the really nice Kestra purple anymore either. It's gone this kind of like blue color. And and apologies to my colleague who built this. I'm not making fun of the colors, but what I want to just point out here is that this is still Kestra, but you can fine tune this view to your company's branding. So you could just insert this directly into your existing platform or website. So your users would have specific permissions. Furthermore, they would only see the apps they have permissions for, and they can come in here and they can just view these apps and they can execute them. You can add things like custom thumbnails to make them more visually appealing and give visual clues to users to what they do. So let's take an example here. So one common use case we have here is like a lot of infrastructure provisioning where you may have long forms, you need to fill out information. So I can come in to say, I want to create a virtual machine. I'll just view this app as an example. I'll just switch the tab again, and you just get this form pop up. You can just fill in this information and it's going to go out and build this virtual machine for me in my Kestra sandbox. So very, very powerful and a very nice way of scaling your business. At the end of the day, like your users, they don't need to go into Kestra. You don't need to give them excessive access to logs or executions or any other information. You just give them the app, they run it, they get what they want, whether it's like building a VM, getting a report, or taking some other action. So it's a really, really nice way of extending the usability of Kestra across your organization.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the reality is these kind of users, all they care about is being able to give it the inputs they need and getting the result at the end, which is whatever that might be. You open the Kestra platform, and because Kestra can do so much, there is a lot of information, which to someone building workflows and monitoring and managing those, that's really useful. But they'll get lost in the process of trying to find the right workflow and executing it when all they want to do is press two buttons and get a result. So apps just helps completely remove that layer of complexity, which is needed, right, to build the workflows, but makes it easy for them to get in. And, and the branding as well goes well into that too, because they don't need to know anything about Kestra. They just need to be able to press the button to get what they need. They'll get the answers they need without having any permissions to edit things or delete things. They just be able to run the workflows. And again, that all turns up in the audit logs. You can see, and actually question for you, Paul, on the spot. I guess you can see in the audit logs if an app user, if it was run in an app, maybe you can see that it was done via an app rather than inside of the platform.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe that would show up as an app execution in the audit log. So yeah, you can distinguish those types of executions.
Very nice.
Yeah. So you did mention something interesting there, Will. So I think it's kind of coming up towards like one of the final few things we want to kind of showcase today, and it's kind of the monitoring of like Kestra. So going back to the admins. So I think we, if you don't mind, we'll spend just a few moments just kind of showcasing just some of the administration tools you get with Kestra Enterprise that you wouldn't necessarily find in the open source edition.
Yeah, especially where in the open source edition, you might only, you're running a very basic setup where you're probably running it in the standalone setup where all of the different parts are combined. Whereas in enterprise, you might have multiple workers, multiple different nodes running your instance, and managing that can obviously get out of control if you don't have the right monitoring in place, which is what I will add to the screen now.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. So just really quick on this again. So again, it's just a really nice view that you have if you're the super admin of your Kestra instance. You can come in straight away. You can see the health of your cluster. You can see the various components that are running. You can click into them. You can get some metrics. So for example, clicking into the worker, you can see exactly, there's lots of really nice metrics here on the number of tasks it's currently processing, everything that's in the queue. And all this can also be shipped out to Prometheus. So again, coming back to that theme of scalability, being able to centralize back to your observability platform, all that can be streamed back. What's really nice here as well, if I just come back into the instance view, is the fact that we have a maintenance mode. And this is powerful in two key areas. The first one is upgrades. Like you're going to have to upgrade your platform at some point. And especially if you're doing hundreds of thousands of executions a day, it can be challenging to find a window to when you want to upgrade because you want to limit your downtime. Where maintenance mode is really great is that what it will do is it will pause future executions. They'll all enter a queue state in Kestra, and it'll just let the remaining few executions finish off. So once those last few executions have finished, your Kestra instance is now in maintenance mode. You can safely perform your upgrade. Once that's done, you can exit maintenance mode and the queued executions will start up. So it's a really nice way of limiting downtime and also data loss in those cases. The other key area, it could be the opposite. Something could be going terribly wrong. You've just pushed out someone just pushed out a flow. It's running every second. It's doing all sorts of bad things. You can just put this in maintenance mode and just do your investigation in the safe knowledge that nothing is going to run while you're doing your investigation. So a really powerful feature.
Now, a question for you is, let's say you want to go into maintenance mode, you're planning to do an upgrade. What's a good way to let your users inside of the platform know that that's going to happen and that their workflows aren't going to run maybe as expected because maintenance mode is on?
Yeah, great question. So you can see here we have this announcements tab here. So this just allows you to just put a nice banner on Kestra just to inform users what's going on. So you can see here I have a message already. I'm doing a demo today, so it looks like I should have scheduled that for a bit later. So let me just going on till tomorrow. We'll save that, and now we have this announcement that everyone will see when they log into Kestra. So it doesn't say there; they can just close it down. But it's nice because you can come in here, you can put different types of information. So in my latter case, if there was some outage going on, you could put a warning or an error just so users are aware what's happening, so you can keep them apprised of what's happening through these little updates.
This is super useful because even if you do send an email or a Slack message, there's no necessary guarantee that someone's read that. Whereas, especially with the error one where it makes it bright red, it's pretty hard
Yeah,
to miss, especially when you're like, why can't I run why is my workflow not running? It's like, okay,
yeah,
I understand now. Yeah, exactly. You
yeah,
can't miss that.
yeah, exactly.
Nice. Now, another interesting feature goes on to the whole like managing your instance. Let's say you're wanting to upgrade your instance, but you want to do it sort of gradually. You don't want to just upgrade everything in once and find out that there are some changes that maybe have caused some workflows to fail. What's a way where you can manage your plugin upgrades in a sort of more steady approach?
Yeah, so you can see on the far right here, I have an option called versioned plugins. And this is, again, more of a recent addition to the platform in the past couple of months. This really allows you to decouple your Kestra core, so that's the core orchestrator, versus the plugins. And as you know, we've got, I think, Will, it's like 1,000 plugins or more at the moment at
Yeah,
Kestra.
we've finally crossed 1,000
Yeah,
plugins, which is a lot to go wrong if you update them all at the same time.
exactly. So what we've added here is functionality where you can pick and choose specific versions of plugins you want to install. So take for the example, often as like with any software, there may be breaking changes over time. So let's say, for example, I'm going to just try and just give an example of installing. So say Oracle, for example, the database. I'll just select that. Now, let's assume, for example, there was a breaking change in 1.3.0 that I'm not really ready for. It's gonna like have impact. I need a few more weeks to like fix up my existing flows. Well, that's fine. You can just go back and you can install version 1.2 and you can pin your flows to that version. So that gives you the comfort of knowing that you're not going to be force upgraded to a new version of the plugin. You can just stay on the previous version and that's still working for you. So this is really nice. And also as well, this also allows us to ship updates of the plugins faster. So if there is a breaking change or a bug in a plugin, we're able to release that fix and you're able to pull that plugin faster than having to wait, say, for a dedicated Kestra release. So it's really useful for end users. Now, I actually don't have access to the specific option here, but if you are really like hardcore into Kestra, like building your own plugins, there is the possibility here as well to just upload a custom plugin directly to Kestra from the UI. So unfortunately, I don't have the access, but you would have, say, like an upload feature here to upload your jar. So again, really nice for the real hardcore devs who want to build their own plugins in Kestra.
Very cool. So hopefully that answers your questions about instance monitoring and how you can manage your instance over time. I want to jump back to an earlier topic before we finish the scalability part, which is worker groups. You discussed it
Mm.
before. They're similar to task runners, but they're different. What are these? And two, how do you manage these?
Yeah, great question. So I've just clicked over to one here. So I don't have one active, but essentially what a worker group is, let's just go to my overview view here. A worker group, it's going to be another instance of, say, a worker, but what's really nice about it is that you can deploy this anywhere. So a lot of use cases we have for this case, for this resource in Kestra, say you have Kestra deployed in a Kubernetes cluster. And now you need to execute some workloads on-prem. And specifically, maybe you have to execute a script on some Windows machine somewhere else. What you can do is you can deploy that worker on the Windows machine, and then you can set that up in Kestra as a remote worker group. Then in your Kestra flow, you simply just, there's like 2 lines of YAML, and you're able to say, run my flow on this worker group, and Kestra will direct the execution to run on that worker group. So it can be really powerful for a lot of use cases. So primarily, we don't necessarily see it for, say, the high scale workloads, because at the end of the day, it can be a single node. It can also be multiple workers. It is a worker group after all. But you could have a case where, okay, I've gotten this far without talking about AI. I think that might be a record for webinars these days. Say you're training an AI model and you need to target a machine with like sufficient GPU power, like we'll just pick the standard use case. You could just deploy a Kestra worker on that machine, and that machine, that workload will be executed there. How you do it? Let's just show you really fast here. We'll take one of my existing examples. Say this particular Python script, this Python command, you would simply add worker group and key, and it would be my worker. And it's as simple as that, as targeting that resource. So that's how you would set it up. So 2 lines of YAML. Now that's the extreme case. The other more common case we see this, again, it comes to workload isolation, because you want to be able to isolate workloads to specific environments. So you may have, again, you're like, say the case where you want to data residency rules, all your compute has to be executed in the United States. You can just deploy a worker in a United States region and ensure all the compute is directed there. So you keep it all within the appropriate region.
And like we showed with all the instance monitoring, you can then monitor where you can see the workers under the instance, but you can also see those worker groups too, and see that they're operating, if they're online, for example, because you might be running into a scenario where your flow is going, I can't run this on the worker group. And then you can go and find out why that might be. So this both gives you a lot of opportunity to run your tasks the way you want, but also you can monitor how that's working in real time as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we've done scalability pretty well, and demonstrated what all the different tools Kestra provides to allow you to scale your operation. But we've talked about all these different features, but how can you have confidence while using Kestra? The product obviously speaks for itself, but what other things are there to give you that extra confidence that your workflows are going to work?
Yeah, so I think this is a part I'm particularly proud of. So as part of my role here at Kestra as lead field engineer, I also do head up our customer success program. And as a Kestra Enterprise customer, we will work closely with you to ensure you're successful. So if I actually just go back and just share this real fast, Will, sorry, I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen. I think that, yeah, so we really have like 2 key pillars for our CS program. It's support and also customer success. We want to make sure you're successful with your use cases. We want to accelerate your time to value. This use case that you're actually seeing on the screen is something I worked with a recent customer on, just helping them build this type of pipeline. Of course, I did add a few additional features for the webinar today, but broadly, the flow itself is what we built for a real live production use case. So being able to pull some data from Postgres, pre-process it, then send it off to AWS batch with some error handling here in the background as well. So we work with our customers to ensure that you're able to build these flows. We advise you. We advise best practices, enablement sessions, but also key, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we're working in software, things go wrong, and we have a fantastic support team here. So we ensure that when their problems arise, that we're there on hand to help you out to resolve them, get bug fixes at the door as fast as possible. So I'm really proud of like the effort and just how well the team have been working on this lately. So it's definitely, I think, one of the key features. I probably should have had that in the pillars at the beginning of our Kestra Enterprise.
Cool. Yeah, so that's how you can have this is sort of the cherry on top, the confidence on top of the product that, as you can see, already works very, very well. Looks like Paul might be having a connection issue, but Oh, he's back. Excellent. Now, that does mean we're getting towards the end of this webinar. So this is a perfect opportunity to discuss some questions. So if you have any questions, and I can see there are a few in the chat, which we'll address in a second, but ask your questions away. We'll be actively looking at those. But I do have a question for you, Paul, to begin with. How do I sign up for a trial of the Enterprise Edition? What's the next step here?
Yeah, great question. So what I would always advise, like if this is your first time seeing Kestra, please go just pull our open source edition, get familiar, learn like what Kestra can do for you. When you are ready to scale, when you're ready to take that next step, you're able to you can come and book a demo with us. We can talk about your requirements and we can work together on a collaborative POC to make sure that Kestra is the right solution for you.
It's worth noting that most of the tasks for building workflows are the same in open source. It's all of those added control and monitoring that Enterprise really helps you scale. So you can go and start building flows and easily migrate those into the Enterprise Edition when you're ready without any issues. You haven't got to completely rebuild them. So there's no sort of harm in trying it out and seeing if it does do what you want. But I have got a little link on the screen if you are interested in booking a demo with the team to learn a little bit more, maybe discuss your particular use case in more detail to understand, is Kestra a good fit for you? Excellent. Now, let me open up the questions again. We talked about migration. I guess a quick question for you, Paul, is how does the licensing work for the Enterprise Edition?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So the licensing for Kestra Enterprise, it is instant-based pricing. So it is a predictable price. So it is unlimited executions in Kestra, unlimited flows, unlimited executions. It is instance-based and sized to your particular environment. So I would recommend coming talk to us, and we can help you size that out.
Excellent. Now, do I need to host Kestra? We've talked a lot about you setting it up with your own, on-prem and how you would manage all of the resources, which would still suggest it's an on-prem solution and there isn't a cloud option, but maybe you can elaborate a little further.
Yeah, good question. So it is. So what a lot of what we demonstrated today is it is a self-hosted solution. You can deploy it on any cloud, however. So we've multiple ways of deploying Kestra. We provide the enterprise grade Helm charts out of the box, so you can deploy directly into Kubernetes, OpenShift, integrate with the existing databases. So we help advise on, and that's part of my as my role as lead field engineer is ensuring that you're able to deploy Kestra successfully. And stay tuned because we do have a cloud edition as well on route. So I would say I'd say stay tuned for more on that.
Very cool. Pricing. How does the pricing structure work for the Enterprise Edition? What should people expect when it comes to that?
Yeah, so I think that was very much. I may have got that mixed up with the previous question, but the pricing is instance based. So what you can expect with Kestra Enterprise is that you will have a Kestra instance, unlimited executions, unlimited flows, limited namespaces. You can build your flows and confidence that you're not going to have to try and adhere to a specific design to reduce your executions. It is a predictable price. Now, like I was mentioning earlier, it is sized based on your requirements. So we do highly recommend you talk to us so we can make sure that we are sizing you appropriately. So definitely click the book a demo. We're happy to talk about that more in detail.
Excellent. Well, I think that concludes this webinar. If you do have any other further questions, though, you can join our Slack community at kestra.io/Slack, where you can talk directly with the team. But I'd also highly recommend, if this is something you want to discuss further, use that link on the screen to book a demo with the team where we can discuss your use case in more detail, understand not only is Kestra Enterprise a good fit for you, but also help you understand how you should set it up to suit your use case. There's sort of two aspects to it. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, definitely book a call with us. We'd love to learn a little bit more about how you what sort of the operation you have and what you're trying to do, and to see if we can sort of solve your problems. Paul, any final words or comments you want to add before we wrap things up?
No, I just want to thank everyone for watching today. I really enjoyed this chat. And if you're celebrating the holidays, happy holidays. I know we're just a week away now.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for coming along.
Yeah.
And we'll stay tuned for more webinars going into 2026.
Great. Thanks everyone. Cheers, Will. Bye.